I thank you for being here this morning. Our gathering here today is because of Jesus, because we're covered by grace. And some of you are up there too. Y'all have pictures of family and friends and kids, and some of you are just getting started, are not married yet, or you're married, you're wanting to have kids, whatever it may be. But God's plan is good, and you trust in the Lord. I want to go through a journey here with you about covered by grace. I wanted to share these pictures with you because this is our life. This is what God has done in our life. And you know, when Anna and I first met, it was in June of 2003, and we met at my grandmother and grandfather's anniversary dinner. And I don't want to explain because it'll confuse you who we knew and what and everything. So, anyways, but we met, and 2 weeks later, we went out on our first date. And it's kind of funny how we first met, and it's kind of funny how when she called me, and she told me, "Don't you tell them that I called you and all that," But it's true. She had to call me because she wasn't going to give me her phone number because, she didn't know I was probably crazy. So she called me, and I was 21 years old at the time, and I was going 500 miles an hour, and I was working and drinking and having fun. I was doing what I wanted to do and was not looking for a wife, was not thinking about family, and me and Felix and I had an apartment together, and then, life was so fast there that I went back home because, I had it so much easier at home. And I told my mother, "I'm never leaving, Mom. I'm never leaving the house." So I had it made. She cooked for me, washed my clothes. I'd give her a little bit of money to pay some of the bills, and I was just at home. And by the time I was 21, I met Anna, and we went out on our first date, and it was very different. We went out, and we went to Black Eyed Pea. Never been to Black Eyed Pea. I mean, when I'd go out to eat, then it was like the Burger King, And so, I never thought about these fast, nice. To me, that was a nice place. Again, Burger King, McDonald's. That's what I was all about. And Anna was totally different in character. She had a professional job. She was a paralegal, and then worked in a prestigious law firm, and so I was like an HEB meat cutter. I didn't think about the future. I was living for the moment. And so looking at us, it was like, how did they go together? And she had it all together, and I was still living at home, and I didn't want to go live. I could have, but I didn't want to live out on my own. And so we went out on our first date, and we went to go eat and go see a movie, and I'd never really done that. And so we went to her apartment. She was staying, sharing an apartment with her brother, and we stayed and we talked in the living room. Got home about 11 o'clock at night, and we talked till about 5 in the morning. We talked all night long in her living room, just talking about everything. And when I had to be at work, that was a Sunday morning. I had to be at work at 7 o'clock in Angleton, Texas. And at this time, I was off of 290 by the Beltway. And that's a long drive. And I had to leave. And when I was leaving, I looked at her in the doorway, and I knew right there and then. I had been, at that time in my life, I was living in disobedience to God. And I was running away from God. But I knew right there and then that I was going to marry her. And I don't know if it was just me or God, but I knew I'm going to marry this girl. Our first date. And about 3 weeks later, we were engaged. And we met in June, but didn't go out till I think the end of June. And by the time October 23rd rolled around, we were married. I came home, I told my mom, I'm getting married. And she had met Anna at the time already, and my mom was like, "Okay, I can do this. I can do this." So when are y'all getting married? And we want to get married in like 2 months, Mom. And she's like, I'm like, "Why the rush?" I'm like, "We just want to get married, Mom." We had dated about 3 weeks, and we were ready to get married, and we knew. And we had a beautiful wedding, the whole 9 yards, everything. And, it's so funny. I just want to say that Susan was there, Felix was there, some family, of course, were there. And the wedding day was beautiful. I drove myself. We got married over there by Miller Outdoor Theater, Herman Park, in the Chinese Garden. And I knew that as I was driving over there, I knew what I was getting into. Don't laugh. A contract. I knew I was binding myself to something that God was going to honor. And I was terrified. I loved this woman so much, like nothing else ever in my life, but I was scared. I was terrified. And somebody asked me, hey, you want me to drive you over there? And I'm like, no, I need time to think by myself. And, and I'm driving, and even though I'm living in disobedience to God, because when I was 16, I had entered into ministry, and then I quickly walked away from it. And God was still trying to speak to me, get a hold of me, but I was trying to run so far away from him. And Anna was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And, at the time she was into that, And so when I'm driving to the wedding, I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I'm scared, I got to hurry up. No, turn back around. I'm just scared. I'm scared. I've never felt this in my life. I get there, I park my car, I go out there, I have my suit on. It's a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky, about 70 degrees and no humidity whatsoever. Beautiful, like somebody just turned the AC on. I'm very hot-natured. I get hot so quickly, and I was so comfortable outside in a tux, and people were coming, and Anna and her family weren't there yet, and I'm there outside. It's an outdoor wedding, and I'm nervous, I'm antsy, I'm going here, I'm going there, and my mouth is so dry. Has anybody got any water? No, I'm nervous, and then next thing you know, it's like in a twinkle of an eye, she's walking down with her father, and the rest is history. We had a beautiful wedding, and I blinked my eyes, and the next thing you know, we have 2 kids. 9 months later, Mariana comes along. And then 9 months after that, right after that, Mikey comes along. Mariana was born. We were married in October. Mariana came in July the next year, and Mikey came the following year in July. So that was hectic. And the kids brought such joy to our lives. And Anna and I, we're very similar. We're very headstrong people. We do things our way, and that's it. And we're very headstrong. So a lot of times we collide with each other. And when we got married, yes, love covers a multitude of sin. But wow, we were on our way back from our honeymoon. We were arguing about something already. We loved each other with a passion. And so it was like, wow, I'm on a roller coaster, and now kids are here. I blink my eyes. We have 2 kids, and life is so fast. And Anna gets pulled from being a career woman to all of a sudden being a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids, and that's all. There were days where she wouldn't put no makeup on, keep the same clothes on, and from the woke up to morning. Yeah, she'd take a shower, but she wouldn't have to change or put no clothes because she was so there with the kids all night, all day, all night, all day. And so, many of you know this. This is very familiar to you. And I work, and I'd come home and eat and go to sleep and play with the kids a little and go to work and work. I thought money, that's all I got to do. I got to make money. And life is going so fast, and the kids are here, and the thing that I'm thinking about is I got to protect this. I got to protect my family. I got to feed my family. So protective, but the best thing that I could have done and I didn't do and I couldn't realize was I should have just surrendered my family to Jesus Christ. But God has a way of doing things. I went through so many years. For the first 10 years of our marriage, I was in control. I did it the way I thought it should have been done. And I'm telling you, that was the wrong way. It was the wrong way. I had nothing but hell to pay for. And so for the first 10 years of our marriage, it was horrible. What I mean by that is no, not with Anna, but just me trying to be in control and make things happen. You know, you name it, every part of our life, financial life, and it was a struggle. It was hard. And I was drinking more and more and more to a point where I lived to get drunk. And I would drink till I couldn't drink no more. But at the same time, my dad had always put this work ethic in me to work. You're going to drink, get drunk, fine, but you better get up in the morning and you go to work. And that's the way I was raised. And I would do that. And I would never miss work for nothing. Even if I was drunk or hammered, I could drink till 3, 4 in the morning and then go straight to work. I mean, I put my body through hell. And I put my wife through hell. I verbally abused her. I was a bad husband. I was bad. And the kids looked up to me, and I didn't have time for them. And I thought I was doing good when I was really doing bad. And so there come to a point in my time where, we first met, and then we dated, and then we got married, and then we had kids. And after the kids are several years old, the hard times come. The really, really hard times. It came to a point in the year 1999 when, Anna was always in control of things. She took care of the kids, the greatest mother on the earth. As a husband that was wild and out of control, she knew how to take care of her family. And she would take care of the kids, and she made the home as good as possible as it could. And Mariana and Mikey, I want to say every good thing they got from their mother, because they were so filled with joy at all times. Anna was so patient with them. Me, was never patient. I'm still not patient. I have to work on that. I have to apply that. And the hard times came. In 1999, I ran away from this area. We went to Kerrville. And from 99 to 2001, it got really bad. Really bad. It came to a point where we were up in Kerrville, and I couldn't hold down a job. Went through 15 jobs in 1 year. It came to a point in time where the lights were cut off at 5 o'clock in the evening one time, and it was about 40 degrees outside. And my wife said, "Don't you care the lights are getting turned off?" And I'm sitting there, "No, I don't care." And she had to struggle with all of this. Because deep down inside, even though I didn't want to admit it or face it, I was running from God. I was called to the Lord at such a young age. Such a young age. And let me just tell you, God loves you when He calls everyone. But He anoints you, and He has a work for you, and He will chase you down. He never grows tired. He never grows weary. And He will chase you down because He loves you with a passion. And He was allowing me to wear myself down. To wear myself down. And one day I found myself in 2000 living up in Kerrville. I was working for I could get a job. I mean, as disobedient as I was, I could walk into any place and get a job. Schlumberger, airplane manufacturing plant. I mean, dump truck driver. I mean, milkman. I mean, I did it, man. I had about 15 jobs in 1 year, not counting the other years. I mean, armored truck driver, for Brinks, and I go on and on. I mean, I had so many jobs, but I was just never happy. I was always searching and thinking there was something better here and something better there. And one day I'm at this airplane manufacturing plant in Kerrville, and I'm in there, and they were teaching me how to do body work. They pull the planes out of the assembly line once they're done on the assembly line, and then they paint them, kind of like what Brother Frank does with cars. But this is like brand stinking new. I mean, bare metal. You put the primer on and everything, and you get it to look so fine where you sell these planes for about $500,000-$600,000. And so, that was a very responsible job, and they were teaching me to do this. And one day I'm doing this work, and Kerrville is such a beautiful place. And I get up and I walk outside of the plant, and I'm looking and I see the beautiful mountains and the scenery. I mean, it's beautiful. It's God's country. But I'm looking and I'm thinking, why do I hate life? Why do I hate myself? I have a perfect wife and kids, but why do I hate myself? I called my wife and I said, I don't know what's going on. And she's like, what do you mean, Michael? I'm like, I just want to kill myself. And I told her that. And, you know, what did she say? You know what? You need to get with it. I'm tired of this. And she hung up on me. That just shows you how bad I was. And so I can't believe she hung up on me. I'll show her. And I got worse. I quit that job, and that's when the lights got cut off, and I didn't care. And I'm thinking, you're going to pay attention to me because my needs come first. Selfish, prideful, all those things that Satan wants in you. Hard times came. God was going to crush my pride. God was determined to crush my ego. God was determined to crush my macho. God was determined to crush my arrogance. God was determined to do this by bringing me to nothing. Just like those airplanes that I was painting. Bringing me to nothing. And when you paint an airplane or a car, you got to bring it to the bare metal. So that you can put the primer on, and then you put the paint on, and the top coat and everything. You got to strip it down to the bare metal. And that's what God was doing. He was bringing me all the way down to my pride and ego. He says, okay, you know, when a surgeon has to do surgery on you, you know what he's got to do? He's got to cut you. And that hurts. He's got to cut you so he can heal you. And that's what I was going through. But see, my surgery was taking several years because I had a lot of pride. Some people have a little, and some people have a lot. And I had a lot. If you know anything about Garcias, they are very prideful people. Somebody laughed. I mean, you may know what I'm talking about. They're very prideful people. You know, just to say this, I did a genealogy thing on the Garcia name, and the Garcia name, it comes from the Romans. It comes directly to the Romans. I'm like, wow, no wonder they were cruel, mean people. The Romans were. And so, I don't know. Then my grandfather said we had Apache blood in us. So Apaches, they're the last American Indians to surrender to the United States government. The Apaches were. So they were prideful. They were cocky. They were going to divide. They were going to be the last one standing. So I'm telling you guys, I'm not just trying to boast in something, but I was very prideful. And God says, this is nothing for me. And so I'm fighting God all the way, and we moved back to this area, and it's 2001, and we come here, and it's to a point where I get a job going back to cutting meat. When I met Anna, I was a meat cutter. And so I go back to cutting meat, and something happens. I'm still drinking. I'm still feeling terrible. I think about wanting to just kill myself. I come home from work one time, and the kids were so happy to see me, and I was so angry, and I got mad, and one day I saw how my emotions can change their outlook on life. And fathers, let me just say this. You set the tempo in your house. You're responsible for the spiritual upbringing of your children, and you set the tempo in your house. You do, fathers. You do. And so, something happened, though. These two planes hit a building, two buildings. And that was the beginning of the end. I'm sitting there in the meat market, actually I'm standing, cutting meat, and these guys are cussing left and right, and they're talking about what happened, and, you know, we got to go do this, and we got to go do that, and everything comes back to me. Oh, God, everything comes back to me. And I'm sitting there cutting meat, and I look, and I say, guys, I know I don't have no right to talk about this, but what just happened today is in the Bible. And they're like, what? And I'm telling you guys. And they said, man, you don't know nothing about the Bible. Man, be quiet. And I turned back around and said, to myself, I said, you're right. You don't know nothing. Shut up. You don't know nothing about what do you have? What right do you have to say anything? So I just shut up and I kept cutting meat and say nothing. And that was the beginning. 2001, September 11th, was the beginning for me of coming back to the Lord. Because in the next months, I would find myself on the internet looking at religions and looking at the truth of who God is. I was looking at the Jehovah's Witness religion. I was looking at Mormons. I was looking at everything. And I was investigating. I was searching, not realizing I already know. I told my mom one time, I think I'm going to join the Jehovah's Witness religion. And my mom looked at me, she's like, she didn't know what to say. But I felt God pull me right back. No, no, no. And I know there may be some Jehovah's Witnesses listening to me. But I speak out of love. I'm not downing any religion. But I do believe what Jesus said. He is the only way, truth, and life. And no one comes to the Father except through Him. Amen. I love you, but that is the truth. And so I began to come back little by little. I get involved in going back to get my high school diploma through a Christian organization. Didn't realize at the time it was a Christian organization. I paid in advance, and I'm like, great. Now I'm stuck. And so the next 9 months was a journey for me. I began that in 2002. And my wife, the whole time through all of this, Anna, she's so good. I mean, wow. She amazes me. To this day, amazes me of her peace and patience and her focus and her trust in God. Even then, when she didn't know Jesus, how she still kept it together. I believe God's grace was working in her, even though she didn't know God. And God's grace is incredible. What does grace mean? Meaning God gives you something that you don't deserve. Mercy means He takes something away from you that you do deserve, which is hell. That's His mercy. But He was giving her grace. As He was working on me, He was giving her something she didn't deserve. Wisdom and understanding. The fruits of the Spirit. I don't understand some of these things. I was bad. And I put her through a living hell. I was a very bad man. And so in August of 2002, I'm still drinking, but I'm searching. Her brothers were trying to speak to me, and I'm just trying to grab a concept of who God really is. And I'm crying out to God. And I began to go on this, in August of 2002, I began to go on this spiritual journey of going to school. And my teacher, Miss Claudia Lamb, Dr. Claudia Lamb, who actually comes to church here now. She's not here today. She's on vacation. But she was, through her ministry, she led me back to the Lord. It wasn't until June 8th of 2003, after the class I graduated, that I came back. Many of you know that story. But my point is that when I came back to the Lord, that day, Anna began to go to church with me, and a month later, she met Jesus. And she, basically, her words, if God can touch my husband, then that must be the real God of heaven and earth. And later on, Anna went to confess that her whole life growing up, she never really accepted what was being taught to her about who God was, because it just did not make sense to her. But when she heard the truth of the Bible for the first time in that month, after I came back to the Lord, things began to fall right in place for her. And she came, and Anna is one of the most godly people I know. She is. And I mean that. I mean that. I'm not just saying that because she's my wife. She has integrity. I can trust her. Man, when you have a wife that you can trust with your very life, you need to honor that. And Anna was there, and we immediately got into the church, into the ministry, because I knew what God had called me to do. I've been running for years from that. And so We get involved and go into church immediately. I mean, we're going to this big old church, and they had like 500 services a week. I'm kidding. But we were there for everything. I don't speak Spanish, and I was at the Spanish service too. And, so, I mean, I was at Spanish fellowships. I was at the English fellowships. I mean, I wanted to be there every time the doors were open. And we're still like that. The kids, when we became Christians, they were 8 and 9 years old. And what was so incredible for the kids is that they came to Jesus at a perfect time. At a perfect time, they came to Jesus. And I just want to say this. I boast in Jesus Christ about this, and only in Jesus. My wife and I have never had problems with our kids. Never. Yeah, we have our little disagreements, and why did you do this? Behave. You can't do this. But we never have problems with our kids. Never. To this day. I know it's not over. Kids, you better behave. But it's because I will tear you up. I brought you in this world. I'll take you out. No, they've heard that a million times, right? But I told my son one time, I don't care, you're 40 years old, I will knock you out, boy. No, I'm just kidding. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. I love them so much. Mariana, we've never had a problem with these kids. And I know that's not the case for everybody else. But for us, I look back on just our little lives. A little pebble in the sand of the seashore. And I look at just our little life. And I see how God provided for us as I was trying to destroy something. And God's grace was upon this little family, even today, as I had tried to destroy it. When I finally broke and gave in to Jesus on June 8, 2003, everything was all new. I love that scripture when the Lord says, behold, all things I make new. That's in the book of Revelation. All things I make new. He says there'll be no more crying. There'll be no more death, no more pain, no more mourning. You know what? We experienced that on June 8, 2003. That was the beginning of our life. Some people, they think you can't experience that till you get to heaven. Well, you know what? Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God wants you to experience heaven today so that you can live for heaven. That day I threw all my liquor away, brand new bottles, June 8, 2003. I came home from church. I'm dumping them down the drain. And Anna said, you're going to regret that. And I'm like, you're right. If I don't throw this away, I'm going to be drinking it next week. I'm going to regret it. So I threw it away. All the music. The kids were raised from little Pampers on music. We had instruments all the time for them. They played today. But I had so much CDs, thousands of dollars worth of CDs. I put them all in a trash bag, and I was throwing them away. And she's like, she wasn't a Christian yet. She's like, you could at least sell those and make money. And I'm like, this is like selling pornography. This is what kept me from God. I threw it in the dumpster. No longer that kind of music. I'm going to praise God. And for almost 2 years, I didn't touch an instrument. Didn't touch an instrument. I said, this was a roadblock for me. I went back to the world because of music. I said, I will never play an instrument. And one day God tells me 2 years into my Christian walk, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing, Lord? He goes, play for me. Play for me. And guys, when God, every one of you has a calling. Every one of you has an anointing. And when you honor God with that calling, that life calling, wow, the peace that you have. Every one of you, ask, seek, search for why you were created. What is my calling, God? What is my anointing, God? And He will touch you, and He will fill you, and He will reveal His grace to you. Then Gabriel and Gracie came along. In 2005, Gabriel, and then in 2007, Gracie. Gabriel was only about 14 weeks old when he died in the womb. But we saw him. And I know he was a boy because I was right about all the other kids and their sexes. So when I saw Gabriel in the womb, I said, that's a boy. And I knew. And he's in heaven. And many of you who have miscarried children, they're with the Lord. Now that's a whole nother teaching, but they're with the Lord. Gracie came in 2007. And many of you know that story. But it's a testimony. Because that was a time where God challenged Anna and I. He said, do you trust me? You know, here we are, going from 10 years of just drama. Now, we're 4 years into our Christian faith. And in 2005 and then 2007, we're being tested. And the biggest test came with Gracie. Here I am. I spent all those years trying to do what I thought I could do right for my family. Prideful, arrogant, and cocky. And, I did everything my way. I was demandful. I wanted this, I was going to get it. And then all of a sudden, God saved us. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later into our Christian walk, God says, okay, I removed pride, I removed your ego, I removed your arrogance. Now I'm going to test you, and I want you to see if there's any more of it left. And he did it by taking away our daughter. Some people can say, well, God, that's not right. What kind of a loving God does that? Oh, my sweet Jesus, he loves us so much. She sees him face to face. A place I desire to be, but I'm not there yet. A place that you desire to be, but you're not there yet. You know what my daughter taught me? She taught me how to live for heaven. She taught Anna how to trust in the Lord no matter what happens. That little girl lived for just 20 plus days, and she taught us a lifetime of teachings. Why is it that I'm always at the church? Why is it that we're always at the church, that we serve God's church? Why is it that our children, Mariana and Mikey, were touched by this little girl? Because God disciplines those whom he loves. God teaches those whom he loves. And when we were walking down to the casket with my family, and everyone else had left, and I was the one that had to close the casket. Because the next time, I wanted to see her face in glory. But as I was walking down there, I could hear God say, do you trust me? Because I was saying, Lord, give us the strength to say goodbye to our daughter. You got to understand something. I was always a control freak. And so was, to a point, Anna, but she did it in a much better way. And when I closed that, and Anna and I closed that, Psalm 46:10 came to me. It says, be still and know that I am God. There was a pastor that I still know, and Brother Tai May. We worked with him through Cambodia missions. He was right there to the side, and I turned to him, and I cried. I said, brother, I can't. It's hard. How can I do this? And, he didn't say a single word to me. All he was like, shh. He just hugged me and hugged Anna. One of the most men filled with such the wisdom of God who walks the face of the earth, Brother Tai May. And all he did was just hug me. Shh. It was like God hugging me and Anna. We learned some powerful lessons. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25 says this. It says, therefore, let me move over to 25. Husband, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her. And then it goes on to say in verse 28, so husbands also ought to love their own wives and their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. For no one has ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ also does the church. For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother, verse 31, and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And this mystery is great, but I am speaking with the reference to Christ and the church. Nevertheless, each individual among you also is to love his own wife, even as himself, and the wife must see to it that she respects her husband. Why is it that the man needs respect, but the woman needs to be loved? Because the men want respect naturally, but the only way we get respect is by loving our wife. But men got it up backwards. It took me a long time to learn what we just read, and I'm still trying to learn it. Y'all women are mysterious. Amen? Be still and know that I am God. And 2 Timothy 4:18 says this. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 18. The Lord will rescue me from every evil deed and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. We went through all this, and we're still going through. The journey is not done. Your journey is not done. But I never, ever thought that I would stand here and be able to be honored and privileged to speak before you today. And to serve Jesus with you together. Isn't God beautiful? God is amazing in what he does. His plans are good for us. But if we try and be in control of things, we'll never see the glory of God. Jesus says, come out of her, my people, meaning the world. Be separate. Touch no unclean thing, and I will welcome you. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And God says, and I will welcome you, and you will be my sons and daughters. But he says, come out of them, meaning come out of the wicked place. God is so amazing in his grace. His grace delivers us from every evil attack. His grace will bring us safely into his heavenly kingdom. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. We can celebrate 20 years only because of Jesus. We can have a good family and a good life only because of Jesus. If it was not for Jesus, we would be divorced. If it was not for Jesus, I would be in prison today, because the way I was headed, I was going to get in trouble. I mean, if it wasn't for Jesus intervening in our life, we wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for Jesus, my kids wouldn't be going to school and college and preparing for living for the Lord. But because of Jesus, they're on the right track. Because and only because of Jesus. Only because of Jesus. Only because of his grace. My friend, you who are watching by video, whether it's live or whether it's at a later date, first seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things shall be added unto you. Live it in Jesus' name.